I'm famously not a fan of Bug, also known as Sultai in Vintage. It's been clunky and not super powerful for a long time. However, quite a few powerful magicians have top aided recent Vintage challenges with a new version of Bug, slimming down on some of the cards that cost mana, because, it's 2023. We don't play mana for spells anymore. What's going on, Vintage Gamers? I have a seldom seen treat for you tonight. Justin playing the notorious BUG. We're gonna play some Bug. The reason we're gonna play some Bug is because this list has had some pretty recent success on the hands of some of the better Deathray Shaman pilots on the platform. Players like Sprouts and Duke 12, who I view as some of the better people when it comes to casting Deathray Shaman. And this deck, I think, is much better constructed than previous versions of Bug. I'll give you a quick rundown on my reasons why. I think Bug, traditional Bug, and like Preordain, not Preordain, sorry, I got Preordain on my head. Like Paradoxical Outcome is kind of been power crept out of the current Vintage format. Cards like Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, even like Preordains inside of Bug, or just not really up to snuff with what is happening around the format. So what this deck does that I like a lot is it just plays a pile of forces. It plays 9 forces in the main. It's playing 4 Collector Roof. It's playing Bowmasters. It's playing multiple anti-card draw cards. And Oko has gotten a little bit better recently due to the amount of 1 rings you're seeing. I think the adaptation for Spell Pierce and 9 forces makes this deck a much better slot in than traditional Bug list. However, I still have some reservations. I don't think this deck is exactly what I'm looking for, but I want to give it its fair go. I'm going to give it its, the good old college try and see what we can do today in this Vintage Prelim versus some of the best players on the platform. Let's try it. If you'd like to see your deck played on this channel, check out the Patreon link in the description below, where you can find all the information you need to submit a donation deck list. Let's battle. Okay, so here in round 1, like I said, I just took this list. It was one of the winning challenge lists from the most recent weekends. So this is either Duke 12's list or Sprouts list or one of the lists in that vein. The only thing I changed is there were some Soul Rends in the sideboard, an anti-white removal spell. I prefer Snuff Out. I don't think the card advantage is what's going to end all be all against mono white. I think being able to just answer things for 0 mana is the way to go. So we're going to jump right in here. Into round 1, I've got a Force of Vigor against an opponent who typically likes to play workshop strategies, so I'm going to keep this hand. You can definitely get away with this kind of keep a little bit more when you have an idea of what your opponent is likely to play. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a disservice to not try most decks that win challenges. Obviously, there are decks that win challenges that are not actually good, but this deck has placed in the finals of like 4 challenges in the last month, so it's a reasonably high win rate recently. So I want to give it a shot. Sprouts is very good at Magic the Gathering, as is Duke 12, and I think they're also both very good at playing Deathray Shaman. That's totally reasonable, but I like look at the list, and conceptually the things that they're doing inside this list make me a lot happier about the list than typically. Like, oh my god, if my opponent is playing the 1 ring deck, like, or even Jewel, like, how good does this deck look against the 1 ring or Jewel? It looks incredible, right? I don't think this is bad. I think this is like a perfectly reasonable pile of cards to play to beat the metagame, right? That's how I look at it. I don't think Tarmogoyf is that different from Seasoned Dungeoneer. It's basically the same idea. It's just a clock that goes on your hate bears. Like, how can you play Seasoned Dungeoneer and then not? It's like Tarmogoyf is like the exact same thing. It's very confusing to me. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that matters. I honest to God don't think that matters. They're both just clocks. All right, looks like my opponent has Force Blue card, pitching Mystical Tutor. Is this a ring? Okay, so my opponent did have the Force for the Vigor, which is definitely not ideal for us. But we have Leovold, Bowmasters. Like, this ring is not really doing anything. Yeah, of course the text matters. I'm not. Oh my god. Oh. Yes, of course being unblockable matters, but like I'm not really talking about like the minutia of of the text. I'm talking about their role. It's not. I've just been. So is it better for me to just play this Leovold? The problem is, are we really beating constructs after our answer to Saga was forced? Because Mind's Desire is actually playable if it's unrestricted. How do people not understand this? Okay, all right. I'm just gonna play Magic, and chat can do whatever it wants. It's not a good start to the evening, but it's mostly not chat's fault. It's mostly reading Twitter's fault. Twitter has been really bad today. I almost want to like play another Bowmaster instead. No, it just can't be better. I guess attacking is dumb, but whatever. Like, I get it. I understand why you might consider Tarmogoyf to be an embarrassing Magic card to play in Vintage, and I've been there, but it's fine. It's fine. Trust me. All right, they didn't have any more artifacts, so that's actually a really good thing for us. Oko is actually great for us here. So my opponent is going to make a 3/3. If they block with a 3/3, we can just Orcish Bowmaster it. So I kind of like that. And then we have an Oko. I mean, we should be winning this game, right? I definitely can't attack with these things. If my opponent wants to make a 3/3 and then we shoot it, I think that's a pretty good win for us. We could also. All right, so they're not falling for the bait. I guess the problem with this now is I don't have a great chump block for Oko. I guess I can just block with the Bowmaster. It's probably fine. I guess if I play the Oko out, then they're likely to needle it if they have a needle in their main. So maybe I'll just hold this Oko and force, and then I'll just hold up Bowmaster. Yeah, that might even be better. I don't really find wait, what? That's got to be worse than making a construct. Okay. I don't really find made up formats to be very enjoyable. Jones. It's just not for me. Some people really like that kind of stuff. I personally don't find it very interesting. They're just not making constructs at all? How can that be the case? What am I missing here that they're not making constructs at all? They're just going to wheel and deal me? I think that can't work, right? I guess. Oh, they just have natural vault key? Okay. So if they have second force of will backup for force. Okay. That makes sense, I guess. It's just, wow. That's crazy. All right, well, we didn't draw any of our 4 collector roofs, and our Force of Vigor got forced, and then our Force got forced. Yeah, that'll do it. Is there any reason to play out? Nope, I don't think so. That's really unfortunate. But I mean, opponent drawing Force Tinker is they pitched Ancestral to their Force of Will. My opponent drew 1 extra card that game, right? I guess they probed and they drew once with the ring, and my opponent drew Ancestral Mystical Tinker Force. All right, well, I don't really think that's a bug problem. I think that's on my opponent drew all the good cards problem. I mean, I don't even have that many cards to bring in because we're already so pre-boarded for this. Yeah, it's a skill diff. It's definitely a skill diff. It's definitely not a Tarmogoyf matchup for anyone wondering at home. We're just gonna bring like Needles too. I really don't like these 1 ring control decks. I think they're kind of embarrassing. Fluster looks pretty bad. Just run like this. Is Misstep even good? It's probably okay. But like all of my cards basically stop their draw engine, so they basically have to top deck exactly their restricted blue cards to win, which is not great. Though something I am worried about in this deck is I think the Dig Through Time and the Treasure Cruise they just look terrible. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they're in there for blue count and like perceived late game power, but I would say that you're likely to find that maybe half the decks are Goyf matchups and half aren't, Slasher. Like, it's not... I know you're just memeing, but, like... It's really frustrating. Mox. They brought in Tabernacle versus me? Oh, you should not be allowed near Magic cards. Okay. I think I'm just gonna name the 1 ring because I have Force of Vigor for Saga, so they have to draw. They literally have to draw a Force of Will off the top of their library to protect their Saga. So I'm just gonna name the 1 ring. That's the thing. Like, obviously, it's not at its best versus like. Well, the problem is it doesn't really matter how it is against the best decks if the best decks aren't the most played decks, right? The best decks aren't the most played decks right now. The most played deck is like Initiative. We're just leading Tabernacle? I want to know something I don't know. They're just waiting for a force, I guess. I mean, if they draw Force of Will, they look very smart, right? I'm almost if my opponent hadn't played Tabernacle, I actually would have hard cast Vigor, which would have been quite a bit better, but I hit the key instead of the Moxen because I just don't think the extra 1 colorless mana matters, whereas I could just like randomly die to Volt Key. So my opponent can't go Mystical Tinker here, but they can go Hold Reacher if they want. If I eat their Urza Saga, that makes a mana, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm not at. This is what I'm talking about, though. This is like a really bad dig through time deck. That's the part of this deck that I'm most concerned about. I really, really dislike these cards here. But I don't know. I guess you would have to play like Preordains or something. Or maybe you could play some like Lorien Reveals or something. They're just going to slam Hullbreacher. Sure. Yeah, unfortunately, Magic Online is not the most cheapest way to play cards. But there are rental services. I don't have a black source right now, so I can't actually eat anything. Not that I want to eat cards from my graveyard anyways, so. I mean, in a sense, of course, it is cheaper than Arena. So a Wasteland is going to put a 4th card in my yard. 5, 6, eat a land is 7, so I'm still 1 short. I might want to hold this Wasteland for Saga, just because I don't have... I didn't, Needle Saga. So I'll probably just play this, and I'm still at 7. I'm just going to hold it, though. There's like no world in which I will be able to play this dig through time this turn, so I might as well attack. So my opponent is currently on all colorless mana, Mystical Tutor in hand, and can't top deck the One Ring to get out of this game. They do have a 3-2 beater, and we only have a 1-2. I guess I shouldn't have boarded out Tarmogoyf. I think I would rather just have the Deathrite Shaman in play, personally. Especially considering I don't currently have black mana in any other way. So... Okay. I'm just going to play around a possible negation, and I'm going to cast the dig in their upkeep. The dig's certainly looking better than like a cruise here, so that's nice. Okay, so I guess we just take Collector Roof Bowmaster. It's pretty straightforward. I guess I could theoretically take a blue card, so in case they draw like Blue Source Tinker, but I'm pretty sure I'd rather just have these 2 cards. It's going to basically shut this entire game down, though I will probably... It'll be kind of interesting how I want to deal with Tabernacle, considering I'm going to turn off my Moxen, but I'm also going to turn off their Moxen. I could theoretically turn off their Moxen and Wasteland their Ancient Tomb and kill their Hullbreacher, which is interesting as well. Oh, they found Lorien revealed. That is a huge issue. Because now they can Mystical for Tinker, and I currently don't have a blue card for my Force. I can just Wasteland them. Okay, I drew a blue card for Force. So now I can't get them do the Tabernacle trick anymore. So I actually think I probably just want to kill this Tabernacle and just go like Wasteland, or like just play Collector Oof, and then I can like wasteland their tabernacle after they pay. And then this lets them maybe mystical for something that's worthwhile, or like a not worthwhile, but like an ancestral maybe that we would think about bowmastering maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. They have what? What's happening right now? Is this a dismember? So they have mystical dismember? Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna force this. I'm definitely gonna force the whatever they mystical for. I do need to wasteland to get a black source for this bowmaster. So I'll probably just let them pay for this Hull Breacher, and then it's kind of unfortunate. That was a really well-timed Lorien revealed. Because if the Lorien revealed hadn't occurred, then we would have been able to just kill the Hull Breacher with their own tabernacle. All right, I'm gonna just trade this Bowmaster for Hull Breacher. Well, not even trade. I'm just gonna kill their Hull Breacher in combat. It's kind of better than that. I can't believe they brought in Tabernacle. Legacy player happening. I think Lorien is quite good. I think that card is definitely good. It's like a Seagate, like exactly what you said. It's like Seagate Restoration that's much more castable, and it also fixes for colors. So for those of you wondering why I'm talking about Tabernacle like it's something so crazy, it's something that a lot of people who don't play Vintage all the time know, but the Tabernacle on the sideboard should really almost always only be brought in against Bizarre decks. Almost exclusively. There's like very small situations where that's not the case, but for the most part, you're just never bringing that in unless it's a Bizarre deck. Okay. Attack. So the current situation is quite good for us, except if they draw Saga, because I chose to needle. I hate this game so much. All right, well, I like finally wastelanded to make a black mana, and instead of waiting for Saga, and they immediately rip Saga off the top. It's quite wild. Saga, best card in Vintage. It's not even in the top 5 lands in Vintage. We've been over this. Literally last night we went over this. Unfortunately, the real problem here was I just never had a black land that wasn't off of Deathrite Shaman. So I had to wasteland to make black mana to make that block. Yeah, I mean, now I need to like draw Force of Vigor maybe. I only have 1 left in my deck. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be rough. Another Bowmaster. Another Bowmaster isn't bad, but I don't think it's good enough. I like haven't been able to use my Deathrite Shaman either. Oh man. I just like have not had a fetch land in this game, right? Oh, I had a Misty, so I got a Tropical Island, then drew another Tropical Island. Could I have not fetched Tropical Island? Was that a choice I could have made? I think I had an Emerald, so maybe it was my own fault. You kind of want to fetch Tropical Island even when you have an Emerald because of Collector Oof, but... We've been over this last night. It's not a very interesting conversation. So the good news is I can ping them and chump block. They don't have a Manifold Key in their deck anymore because we killed that earlier in the game, so we don't have to worry about an unblockable construct, which actually makes constructs a lot less threatening. But the top deck Saga, after I was saving the Wasteland so that we wouldn't lose to Saga, and then I had to finally use the Wasteland to make black mana. I guess theoretically I didn't have to use the Wasteland. Oh, they have an Expedition map in their deck? That is so good here. They can just go get a another Saga. That's sick. Expedition map is... I like Expedition map a lot in these decks. The reason I like Expedition map a lot is because I don't really believe in the One Ring game plan. I actually think the Saga game plan is much more achievable than the One Ring, because all these cards just completely hate on the One Ring. But I don't think we have enough chump blockers, unfortunately. And this didn't go on the stack, so... That is not an infinite loop, Slasher, but I appreciate that you tried. If I draw a fetch land this turn, am I winning? It's typically infinite enough in the scenarios where that occurs, which are few and far between, I would say. I just can't draw a black mana, huh? I've cast 2 black spells in this game without drawing a black mana. I don't know how. There's no wheel in my deck either, right? Drawing Ancestral? That's not something we do on this stream. We don't draw the good cards on our stream. Sorry. I don't know what you're talking about, Slasher. I literally just 4-0'd a prelim with Tinker Doomsday. I literally the last time we played. So I figure we're more likely to win with this Bowmasters than we are with a Deathrite Shaman. So I was just going to chump with the Deathrite Shaman, get a little eating in. Because we only have one more turn anyways. So like my best way of winning this game might just be attack with both Bowmasters. What they declare a blocker, and then I ancestral them. Thought Monitor is an embarrassing Magic card to play in Vintage. More so than Tarmogoyf, even. Alright. Unfortunately, we have been defeated in the Arena of Ideas by our own mana base. This game was quite easy to win if we ever had access to a black mana, so it might just be I threw the whole game on this first fetch. Like, if I fetch Underground Sea, and then I can hold my Wasteland for Saga, we just easily win the entire game, right? And I also get to eat black mana. I get to eat like a bunch of spells out of the yard. I think, I basically think this game was entirely lost on my one decision on turn 1 to fetch a tropical island. Which hurts, but kind of the joy of Vintage as well. All right, let's try this again. Round 2. This hand looks really bad. No forces are turned on. I can't imagine this is a keep. This hand looks slightly better. He likely doesn't. Like, what can he do, though? Can he just never play Saga? Well, I can eat 3 at least a couple times because I have a 2-drop in my yard. Oh, sorry, a creature in my yard that I can use to heal. So, I mean, I think at some point they want to play Saga so they can draw a second Saga, right? And then they can actually get through. So if Underground Sea means Doomsday, I want a Wasteland. If Underground Sea means Tinker, I don't want a Wasteland. They played Underground Sea with no fetch and didn't cast a Preordain. I'm gonna make the judgment call that they're playing Tinker and not Doomsday and push towards my Collector Roof. This Wasteland's quite bad for me if they're like if they're playing Tinker or some kind of artifact based deck. Having the ability to play Collector Roof on turn 2 is so much higher than being able to Wasteland. This should be even better than normal Bug against Doomsday as well, with Bowmaster's many forces. It definitely feels like Doomsday. Though Collector Roof is not even that bad against Doomsday, though it's probably worse than Wastelanding. Should fetch, maybe. I guess maybe not. That's a perfect draw. I like that draw a lot. See if they crack this fetch or if they want to draw more of their ponder cards. The fact that I have the Vigor here and not one of the 6 blue forces is quite bad for me. Unless they're on Tinker. But I think they're probably on Doomsday, it looks like. I just don't have the right cards for the matchup. Like I have the Vigor and the Oko instead of the Negation and the Force or the Spell Pierce. That'll probably be Ancestral. Or Dark Ritual or Doomsday if they're going to kill me. Force of Will, so they're killing me with Force backup? That's interesting. So definitely Doomsday. The third Underground Sea almost assuredly signals Doomsday. So it looks like we're getting killed with Force backup. So I don't think any play we would have made this game would have mattered. Theoretically, we could have played Collector Roof instead of Wasteland on this turn, but I don't think that would have changed the outcome here. We just don't have the right cards in our hand to win this matchup here. Really, the biggest problem is we need to be winning round 1, where I think we have an extremely favorable matchup, but we got pretty much annihilated, so not much to say there. I mean, I mulliganed, right? Like, I made a mulligan. I'm not going to mulligan that 6. The 6 seemed fine against a variety of decks. It had a Vigor, it had a Oof, it had a Wasteland. Like, you have to keep that hand and sometimes lose to your opponent doing an unfair thing, right? It's not like I didn't register 6 blue forces. I just didn't have any in my hand. Either hand, really. Oh, Mishra's Bauble. 3 Mishra's Baubles? Oh, I don't think we're getting a turn. My opponent chose to mystical for force of will. The chance that we get a turn here is slim to none. Wait, there's no gush in the yard though. Maybe they have Street Wraith Ancestral. Three Mishra's Baubles is just asking to get Collector oofed. I am not a very big fan of Mishra's Bauble. Oh wait, there's four Mishra's Baubles. There's four Mishra's Baubles. So this should be like Preordain into Lotus, Lotus into... Wait, no, that won't work. Yeah. Well... All right. They did not do this in a correct way, but I don't think it matters. Most of the time, you can make a mistake or two in your Doomsday pile, and it doesn't really matter. They needed to make a pile with Gush, is what they had to do, so they could preordain into Gush, Gush into Lotus Oracle. Yeah, but they have a Force of Will in their hand, hashtag, because they tutored for it. So we have to draw a... We have to draw a Force of Will off the top of our library. It's unfortunate. Yeah, we don't even have two threats, right? So it's not like we can... What are you demonicking for, Ancestor? Like, what is demonic doing that Hullbreacher isn't beating? Oh man, if we had an extra mana, we could get Misstep or something. Demonic Fluster. Is Fluster actually winning? Maybe. Well, Fluster technically is countering Ancestral. No, but they're drawing Lotus for turn, right? Well, it doesn't kill us because it'll only be at 3 cards. They need to draw. That's why I was going to play Hullbreacher instead. What if we demonic for Lotus? Do we get to play 2 cards? No. That's only +1 mana. I only have 4 cards if that happens. I could have demonic for Wasteland. That doesn't do anything though. Well, maybe they'll screw up and I think we're gonna get a I think we're gonna get a Flusterstorm and hope they don't play their Lotus first or something. I still don't know how that's gonna win us the game, unfortunately. I don't think it's going to. But it is the like highest thing that gives us a likelihood of taking another turn. Ancestral doesn't like getting Ancestral target them doesn't do anything Hullbreacher wouldn't normally do. Just eats the force. So they made up their pile was what? Ancestral Time Walk, Lotus, Oracle. Unfortunately, this still doesn't work because they can pay for 3 copies of Flusterstorm and force the 4th one. but and again, even if we do this, my opponent just untaps on the next turn and oracles us. And I guess we could draw a wasteland maybe. So we would have to top deck a wasteland, but there's no way they don't have a blue card in hand. They would never have mysticaled for a Force of Will if that was the case. They have Ancestral, so they're going to go Ancestral Oracle on this turn. Okay. I don't think anything we did really mattered. All right, on to game two. I am going to bring in Mindbreak Traps. And, man, I have no cards to bring in, huh? I guess I can bring in a Needle. Named Bobble. So, yeah. If you draw a card from your library and it has no cards in it, you lose the game. So, don't do that. I'm never going to get over the paid actor allegations on this one. All right, my hand has a Force and a Wasteland. Oh boy. Booble. Look at your top card. Fetch it away. And a Moxen. Look at my top card. That's rude. I'm just not lucky, Slasher. What do you want from me? We don't draw Ancestral. We don't draw Black Lotus. I'm a terrible bug player. I'm horrible at fair vintage magic. Actually, that's not true. Check out the Luris League. Well, you can't. It's not on Twitter. It's not on YouTube yet. Unless you're watching this on YouTube right now, in which case the last video that came out was a Luris League, and it slapped. Highly recommend. I almost put together a deck tonight that would have been bug, but not bug. I almost put this deck together, but it looked like the mana was a little sussy. This is like 4-color Luris, all the best hate bears kind of thing. Thought about doing that. I don't know if my opponent misplaying can be considered my luck. Maybe it can be. I don't personally consider that to be part of my luck. Wait, my opponent doesn't have a land? What is happening? Are there preordains in my opponent's deck, or are they just playing around Wasteland, or what's going on? Did I put Gush in this deck? Why doesn't this deck have Gush? Shouldn't this deck have Gush? Am I crazy? I think Collector Roof's the best play here because we've already know they have 4 baubles in their deck and they have an active Mox Trap. So I'm going to play this Collector Roof first. Forcing the Collector Roof, pitching Mindbreak Trap. Sure. That's a 4/5 Goif to you. Bigger than a Seasoned Dungeoneer. Vampiric Tutor. Am I just going to get killed through Force of Will? Well, I think that the Doomsday lists are all just maining Mindbreak Trap. And my deck has like 6 Forces and 2 Spell Pierces. I think it's fine to keep Mindbreak Trap in. Though it's probably worse than like a Fatal Push if you have a Fatal Push in your sideboard. I guess they have Cut Down, which doesn't kill Leovold. Or Tarmogoyf. Sometimes. It's going to be a pretty big nightmare for my opponent if they do like Vamp for Ancestral, Crack for an Underground Sea, cast Ancestral, get it negated, get Wastelanded and Tarmogoyfed. Like, that's probably game winning. I'll see. I mean, if they go Ritual Doomsday, probably just have to counter it. Looks like they're going to go Ancestral. They didn't fetch Basic Island. Opponent, you got to fetch Basic Island here. You got to throw some respect. You got to give respect to the 3rd best land in all of Vintage. Wait, what? Are they like demonicking for Lotus and then going Lotus Doomsday? No? Okay, I don't know what's happening, chat. I got no idea. Should we put bets on if this Tarmogoyf is getting Force of Will? Blue card's a good draw. Why am I drawing the good cards when I'm already winning? That feels bad, man. Is Ancestral when you've already won the game even still Ancestral? Like, it's not in my opening hand. Does it really count? They just top deck a land? They just top deck a land after all this? Brutal. So they did go for Demonic for Lotus and then didn't go for the kill? I'm so confused. What's happening? Want to know what's in their head and their hand. Okay. Yo, what if we put the scam package in Doomsday? Just saying. Has anyone... I mean, it already has Dark Ritual in the deck. Why can't Doomsday just play Grief and Reanimate? How much do they go down to here? 8? It's unfortunately not in Tarmogoyf range, huh? What do you think about, like, letting this Doomsday resolve with them having 1 card in hand? It's probably still more likely to just win if we force it. They're going to be at 16 and we have a 5-power Goyf. It's probably better to just force it. Well, it's not like we have Force plus Ancestral. Sasha, I don't know if you've been watching the Tinker Doomsday VODs, but I do think that Tinker is like the much better part than Doomsday. Though our Tinker does cast Doomsday, which is quite fun. Citadel with a Doomsday on top is just good eating. All right, what's your last card, friend? Show me your secrets. They have another Doomsday. Well, that's not going to be very castable here. Even if you hit a land drop, because I have a Tarmogoyf in play. I think that people were kind of playing the Tinker Doomsday deck wrong. But, like, you should be just always tutor for Tinker at every point. It's kind of nice that this Tarmogoyf is going to make it so they can't cast the second Doomsday, even if they had hit, like, Dark Ritual there, because they would just lose too much life and die. Oko. I have so many bad cards still in my deck, because my deck just has no sideboard cards from the matchup. I mean, I am kind of pre-boarded in the fact that I have, like, a bunch of negations and stuff, but... Now, even if they Doomsday, they'll go to 2 life and die to Deathray Shaman, which is quite nice. Oh, we don't even get to go to a game 3. I was like thinking about game 3 and like what I would try to board out, but we didn't get a game 3. Okay. Okay, here we go. Round 3. We're playing against Doherty. I believe they're on our blue-white Luris Samwise deck. Probably the deck that I just recently had a brilliant outing with. Unfortunately, our deck is probably really bad against that. Our deck is pretty metagame to beat the unfair decks of the format, whereas opponent is going to try to do a fair value game plan here. If we don't have something like a Deathray Shaman opener, I'm not really convinced it's good. However, double Wasteland Collector Roof can be pretty reasonable. So we're going to give it a shot. Our opponent has revealed a Luris, so we do know that they have a Luris. What is this background on this Luris? What is going on here? It's weird looking. How many swords in their latest list? Only 1 swords, 1 march. Looks like they just played like very similar to my list from before. Tarmogoyf probably good in this matchup. Yeah, got the force on the collector roof, pitching Fairy Mastermind. You don't think Tarmogoyf is good against the blue-white 2/2s dot deck? Come on, Slasher. Like, use... I know you got a little brain in there. You can do it, I believe. Samwise, get back Lotus. Value. I love it. This deck slaps. Oh, no. Buy Luris, replay Lotus. Good thing I have my 3/4 to block with. I love this card. This card's so cool. They only have one card left, though. So as long as they don't find some kind of card advantage engine, we should be in a good spot. We can't block the Samwise, who's the ring bearer right now, but... No, Slasher, you have a common misconception here. We are the blocker. That we can't block the Samwise, unfortunately. Well, they didn't realize we can't block the Samwise. I think that is notably good for us. Krakus is a problem? In what way? A solvable problem? Is it? Oh god, it's a huge problem. It's fine, I have a Force of Will. Wait, they can just play a Samwise, though they lose their Lotus, but then they can replay Lotus. Yeah. I'm gonna have to force this now. Nah, maybe I just let it go. I fucked up, chat. I was supposed to wait. I did it too early. It's my fault. It's fine. It wasn't actually a problem. I screwed up. Pilot error. I'm not made to play these bad bug decks, okay? Well, they can no longer replay the Caracas, kinda. So you're incorrect on that one. I mean, the only reason we're not losing this game is because we have a Tarmogoyf, so point away from Slasher. I just... Didn't I fucking say in the beginning of this game that I think we're very unfavored here? Like, do people listen to me? I swear. Like, I'm here saying these things. The One Ring matchup, literally the matchup we lost in round 1. Like it's very straightforward. Look at the list. It's a 4 Collector, 2 Bowmaster. It's good against decks that are playing artifacts and drawing cards. Like, you're killing me. Killing me. Opponent should have made Luris the ring bearer so they could have attacked. Does it beat Shops? Maybe. It beats the best Shops deck, Jewel. So, I guess that's a true statement. I mean, we're just super doomed in this game once opponent reads the ring. Like, that's what this deck is doing. This deck is designed to beat these all-in, combo-oriented decks that are drawing cards and playing artifacts. It's going to beat Jewel. It's going to beat the One Ring. It's going to lose to the Samwise value pile. It's probably beating all of your Bizarre decks as well. So, like, typical kind of bug fashion. It's a pointed metagame deck. I should just play Tinker Doomsday. But then I get yelled at, and everyone's like, oh, you played the same deck again, Justin. Boring. They discarded Wasteland? That can't be good for me. This game was really winnable if my opponent did not have a Black Lotus. I don't really think Time Walking is better than Wastelanding. Oh, they had the Strip Mine from before. Right. of course. I actually think Time Walking is worse than having Wasteland and Strip Mine, though. I will not register Creative Technique. Stop that. This game is like, was pretty winnable with just like a single Oko wins this game very easily. But we again drew the problem with this deck is we draw the cards that are not good in the matchup instead of drawing the cards that are good in the matchup, right? We have no way to draw the right cards, and we just draw the wrong half of our deck. Like against Doomsday, we drew like the wrong half of our deck, and then against the Ring, we didn't draw Collect Roof against the Ring. Like simply drawing Oak, like I made the blue-white deck. I literally made the deck that's across the table. I know it can't be an Oko. I wonder if this deck you're supposed to play Leyline. What if we ask the deck designer of our opponent's deck how they feel about the matchup? Hold on, I'm gonna go ask. Oh, oh, thanks for having me on for an interview, Justin. Oh yeah, so I made the opponent's deck. It's a blue-white Samwise value deck. You know, it's really good at grinding against other fair decks in the format. Decks that are not doing, you know, unfair things like Jewel. See how it's, you know, built to grind and just recur things over and over with the Luris? It has all these kind of advantages, and it got a Library of Alexandria card advantage. So yeah, I would say it's probably pretty good against your stupid Hate Bear deck that doesn't do anything. Wow! Thanks for that interview, Glasses, Justin. I can't believe you would just design a deck like that. Crazy. Huh. Anyways. I don't know, Sibit. This hand is just a single land off the top away from winning, so I'm just gonna keep it. Oh! Why do I make decks if I'm just gonna sit here and lose to them? I'm not having fun, chat. I'm having a bad time. I mean, the chatting. Oh, never mind. I'm a fucking genius. I'm gonna hold my land in my yard in case I draw a non-fetch land. All right, now if I just draw another land. Oh, they overdrew? Come on now. Pull it together. Why didn't I cast Oof turn 1? I'll never know. Just a huge misplay, really. All right, so does my opponent play Spell Pierce? Man, they play Spell Pierce. It does if you do it fast enough. Do I play around Spell Pierce, chat? Probably not. Probably no, I probably do. I probably do play around Spell Pierce. I'll just play Collect Roof this turn. No problem. No, I think we should play around Spell Pierce. They pitched a Fairy Mastermind though. So maybe we don't play around Spell Pierce. Alright, I'm not playing around Spell Pierce, I've decided. I'm getting Spell Pierce, chat. I knew they had Spell Pierce. I just knew they had Spell Pierce, man. I just knew it. I'm so good at this game, but I'm so bad. How do I, like, always figure out the exact right thing to do and then do the complete opposite of the right thing to do? How do I do it? Slasher, I can't just make Tinker Doomsday videos every single video. We've been all over this. Wait, what? Doesn't our opponent have to Wasteland first? They didn't want to do the Wasteland thing? I can. Why not? I'll show you why not. Because people don't want to watch that. Nothing. Worst performing video in the last like 30 videos. If people don't want to watch it, why make it? This doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think one, like, you know, an extra prelim of practice is going to make the difference for me. So, oh, I guess that's why they didn't want to do the Wasteland lock, because they already had another Wasteland in their hand. Well, I don't care about winning. Winning is kind of irrelevant to me. It's all fun money Magic Online tournaments that don't mean anything. Like, winning a vintage prelim means actual nothing. Prelims are like completely useless tournaments. You can tell Sandy Dog I said that. Like, if I'm playing an RCQ or a PTQ or a showcase, then sure, I'll play. I mean, obviously, I'll play the same deck over and over again in that case. And we've done that before. But, like, I'm just done with this. I don't know. I prefer to make interesting content that people enjoy and have fun watching and want to see. So... Okay, here we go. Fourth and final round of this vintage preliminary event. We are against Funky Monkey. Typically a Bazaar gamer, but they've been away for a little while, so I'm not sure. I do have a Force of Will and a Brainstorm, and I'm on the draw, and I have a Probe. The problem is, if my opponent is, in fact, on Bazaar, that this hand is just not very good against Bazaar. This is like another instance where, instead of Collector Roof, I would want to have Tarmogoyf, and instead of Force of Negation, I would want to have... Wasteland, and I really suspect my opponent is going to register Bazaar, so even though this hand looks kind of reasonable, maybe I can get away with it with Probe and Brainstorm. I guess that's like quite a few looks to find a Wasteland. If my opponent is on like the Hogaak deck, which is their kind of their bread and butter deck, what can we realistically draw that will survive? There's not actually that many things that are going to survive on the draw against this, like a very heavy hollow one hand anyways. And we do have a Force of Will for a hollow one. I guess we could be looking for a Bowmaster, but there's no way... All right, I'm going to keep this hand. I think I've talked myself into it, but I think it's totally reasonable to mulligan this. I'm not gonna force Once Upon a Time on 7. I'm looking to maybe force just the hollow one. It might still just be too much for us. They did reveal a Vengevine off of this Once Upon a Time. So that means they're going to be able to pitch at least Vengevine. If they can bring back Vengevine this turn, which they can, because they're pitching Blazing Root Walla to Madness, Blazing Root Walla to Madness, bringing back Vengevine. So it's a lot. Do they have a hollow one? No, they're passing the turn. All right, so I need a lot off of my top of my deck. Force of Vigor is really not it. What do you have in your hand? Oh, I just got rid of it all. Well, that's not good. I wanted to get rid of the Vengevine before the hand appeared. I can go back and look at the VOD if I need to, but if this Brainstorm doesn't find us lands, we're dead anyways, so. It did find us lands. I just don't know if these cards are going to be enough. Okay, now I need to go back in the VOD and see what those cards I revealed were. Can't believe I just exited out of it for funsies. Video. This one. Oh, thanks, Pass Justin. Oh, I clicked it so fast that. Oh, it's so fast. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see it in time. Okay, here we go. So Rootwalla, Cradle, Hex Shrinker, Rootwalla, Bloodghast. Oh boy. That's just so many creatures, right? All right, so we're gonna draw Collector Roof, Vigor, Time Walk, and we're not gonna be able to eat the Bloodghast, and they're gonna put 2 Wallas in, and we're gonna have to force the Hex Shrinker. We are currently blocking. Oh, but next turn we can't be blocking because Yavimaya is going to turn this Bazaar into a green source to pump the Rootwalla. Wow, that's crazy. I think we're just going to get outvalued in the creature battle here. We needed a Tarmogoyf. This is kind of what I'm saying, though, right? We drew the Collector Roof when we really wanted Tarmogoyf. This attack makes sense, but it's nice that we get to eat a Rootwalla. We're going to have to Time Walk because we have that dead Vigor to fight through. Oh no, they drew Cradle. That's even worse for us. So this Cradle taps 1 for each creature, which means they're going to be able to pump 2 Rootwallas a turn. I don't think we're surviving this. It's just too much. So we know we draw Vigor. I Time Walk. And I think what I'm going to do this turn is I'm going to eat a creature from their yard. Because if I play Collector Oof, it's going to turn off my island for next turn. In which case, I won't be able to deploy both Collector Oofs. I guess I would still be able to, but this way I get an extra green. I mean, I cast some good cards. I just didn't draw the cards I needed to beat these cards, right? Which is kind of the thing we were talking about in between rounds, how we need our answers to line up to their threats, and they just haven't been. Oh, we're actually out of lands in the yard. All right, so all I get to do is play Collector Roof and hold up a block and an eat. The problem is I can't successfully block these Rootwallas because they both get pumped by Gaia's Cradle. So this is 4, 7, 10. I can like block, eat Bloodghast in damage in end of combat, take 4, 7, 10, and go to 2. There's just like no way, right? Even if I draw Tarmogoyf, if they have too many creatures at this point. Our deck is so low power. It's okay. In game 2, we're going to be on the play, and we have Bowmasters and all kinds of good stuff. But this matchup doesn't seem super great. Bowmaster is definitely good. But we don't even play 4 Bowmasters. Alright, so they're gonna hold back the Root Walla. Can I make some kind of profitable double block here? Not really. So I think it's just block here. Oh, I can't even do this block because I'll take 10 damage and I won't be able to eat in game 2 in time. Alright, let's go next game. We need a little more help than this. So Needles, Tabernacle, definitely coming in. Fatal Push is definitely coming in. Is Snuff Out coming in? I don't really think Snuff Out is coming in. I don't think Vigor's just for Hollow One is technically good, but Negation is terrible, and so is Flusterstorm. Spell Pierce is terrible. So these might even stay in. That's a pretty reasonable and easy swap. This leaves me on how many blue cards? This leaves me on 6, 10, 15 blue cards. It's not really ideal. It just doesn't feel like the mapping here is very good. Snuff Out is not really good in this matchup, though. I don't really think there's a viable card to snuff out. Maybe I theoretically could bring in Mindbreak Trap against them. It's pretty narrow, though. I think we're just going to go like this. We'll leave these Vigors in for... They can hit Hollow Ones, like a multiple Hollow One start. It's not ideal. Yeah, it's just stopping Vengevine and like maybe a couple Bloodghasts. I don't typically find it to be correct to bring in Ley Lines in this matchup. This hand is not good enough. So the biggest problem is my opponent's deck is really geared to be beating Leyline and Wasteland and Tabernacle. That's the real upside of playing an Agrovine deck, is it's actually really good against classic Bazaar Hate. It's really bad against like all-in combo. But unfortunately, we are not the all-in combo deck here. However, this hand has a Needle, a Shaman, a Tarmogoyf, and a Leovold, which is basically all I could ask for. So I don't like to bring in Leyline. I don't think it's unreasonable to bring in Leyline, especially if your deck can't really beat a Vengevine start. I don't think our deck is that deck. Our deck should be able to beat some Vengevine starts. So I would prefer not to bring in Leyline. Though it's possible that Leyline is maybe better than Vigor, but Vigor beating Hollow One starts kind of feels like it could be better for me. It's not an exact science. It's kind of a little bit up to personal viewpoint, interpretation, and how you think your deck functions in the matchup. So you could definitely bring in Leyline here, and I wouldn't fault you for bringing in Leyline. But it's really disappointing, like how good Leyline is, because if you look at your opponent's deck, right, you're really stopping for Vengevines and then sometimes Bloodghast. It's not even like there's Hogaaks in this deck. If there's Hogaaks in the deck, you actually do want to bring in Leyline. But the thing is, these decks have been engineered so that they don't care about Leyline. So you're bringing in like Serum Powders, and you've kind of cut the cards that are vulnerable to Leyline. And that's kind of the intended purpose of the deck. So I'm just going to lead Needle and prevent a broken... I I'd like to prevent a broken Bazaar start. Forces them to have Mental Misstep or Force of Vigor for this Needle. And if they don't have a broken Bazaar Star, it's much easier for us to handle their deck. This is the best card. I think Needle right now is the best card in terms of it hits all of your Bazaar matchups, right? The problem with Needle is the card is a lot worse on the draw than it is on the play. But an on the play Needle is probably the single best piece of anti-Bazaar of Baghdad. So, a good start. Because this is always going to be great against Dredge and great against Squee, and it's usually good here. Them having a Wasteland would be bad for us if we didn't have a Deathrite Shaman coming. I specifically fetched Tropical Island and not Bayou because I didn't want my Bayou to get Wastelanded. My Bayou is going to be a much higher value land in this match than it is in like some of our previous matches, especially because not only can we eat instants and sorceries from our opponent's graveyard, but we also will be able to eat creatures and prevent them from doing, blood gas and that kind of thing. Or even simply eating creatures to like win a life total race. So we don't have a lot of mana left, obviously, but we still have the ability to use our Deathrite every turn. So if we don't get Wastelanded here, we can play our Tarmogoyf, and then we have to draw another mana to play our 3-drops. Our 3-drops are actually a lot worse now that we have this active Bazaar. But I would much rather have... Sorry, active Needle on Bazaar. But I would much rather have the Needle than not, so... Well, so another reason you don't have Basic Island in this deck is because you're no longer playing Preordain. One of the reasons traditional Bug wanted to play a Basic Island is because you wanted to be able to fetch Basic Island and cast Preordain, and this deck doesn't have Preordains in it. A lot of the time, the cards, I guess that's not exactly true, but like a lot of times where you would fetch Basic Island for Spell Pierce, you don't need to fetch Basic Island when you're playing a Spell Pierce against a deck where Spell Pierce is good. So my opponent found... Oh, wow, that's a nice find. So my opponent found Beseiju off their Once Upon a Time, which means if they make it to 1 and a green, they will actually be able to kill our Needle. They also have Dismember for our Shaman and a Wasteland for our Bayou. Wow, this could get out of hand really quickly. Opponent's playing a very strong fair game in this one. We really need to hit a land here to play our Tarmogoyf. Sometimes lucky. Let's go get a Tropical Island. Let's get an Underground Sea. The black cards that we can draw to are actually better than the green cards in this matchup, seeing as we're already going to play our Tarmogoyf. So now we have a 3-4 in play. That should help a lot. It also makes their line of like Wastelanding a lot worse because they're currently behind on board. They also kind of want to keep this Wasteland in play so they can have the 1 and a green needed to Beseiju this Needle. The really, really good news here is if they Beseiju this Needle, we get a land and we can start playing our 3-drops. And both of these 3-drops will turn off Bazaar of Baghdad. So will a Wasteland. But... now I actually have some choices. I can't play a Leovold with this mana, but I can play a Hold Breacher. And I think playing a Hold Breacher makes more sense than Wastelanding the dead Bazaar right now. So let's just do that. We do kind of want them to invest the mana into Besieguing this Needle so that we can actually get a ton of value off of our Hold Breacher stopping their draws from Bazaar. Draw 2, discard 3. Opponent can't draw. But we also want to clock our opponent, so just simply playing this Hold Breacher at end of turn might just lock the whole game up. It's going to be quite hard for our opponent to gain any kind of substantial board position without a Bazaar app being activated. And we already have quite the clock. Yeah, that's a concession. Okay. We got pretty lucky in this game to draw the land. But we did draw the land, so... I have to kind of reconsider Leyline So another thing to think about in this whole ley line conversation is the fact that we are on the draw now, and our needle is not going to stop our opponent as well. And so we actually are a little bit more vulnerable to strong Vengevine hands, right? So I actually think we might want to bring in some ley lines now. It's possible what we want to do is simply not play Force of Will. How many things in our opponent's deck do we really want to Force of Will? If that's the case, maybe we do need to bring in Snuff Out, as Snuff Out can kill Hex Drinker, which is one of the few cards I wanted to Force of Will in the first place. These Delve spells might be not very good. We could do something like this. My biggest problem with this configuration is we actually are kind of opting into playing the same game as the opponent, and I think the opponent may do it better than us unless we have a Tarmogoyf in play. If we have a Tarmogoyf, we kind of outsize their board, but maybe we can get away with like an Oko or something. That might be okay. I like this, actually. This seems like a reasonable setup on the draw. Yeah. I mean, if we cut the Delve spells, we're at like, what, 10 blue sources? Like, there's no way we're supposed to play Force of Will, right? We need to have blue cards to pitch the Force of Will, or it's just is a useless card in our hand. Well, this hand was never getting played no matter what was in it. Opponent has exiled 7 and gotten a free Serum Powder. Mulliganed to 6. We're going to mulligan to 6 as well. Our hand has Leyline, Strip Mine. Collector Roof is very embarrassing in this matchup, but we don't have enough cards to cut, so. Opponent did exile double Besage off of their Serum Powders. So that's a small upside. I'm just going to get rid of a Collector Oof here. And I am going to reveal this ley line. So the biggest problem right now is if our opponent taps and puts hollow ones into play, we don't have any answers. But they did exile 2 hollow ones to their Serum Powder. So there's some upsides. How many Besage do they typically run? It kind of depends. Their last list had 3 Besage, maybe 4th in the board. So up to 4 Besage. So we actually stopped a Vengevine here. With our ley line, which is probably very important, but our opponent did have a hollow one and 2 Brutwallas. So we're in deep trouble because this clock is quick. I actually don't think I want to strip mine because I really need to establish a board presence and fast. Maybe what I do is play... I think I have to just play fetch. What I really needed there was a Tabernacle off the top, but that's kind of asking for a lot. Yeah, I mean, we're just lucky we had a ley line so that we didn't get Vengevine as well. We would just be too far behind. Gaia's Cradle as well. This is going to be too hard. Frustrating. Really frustrating. Maybe I can draw Vigor this turn, play a Collector Roof. I'm not really getting the support I need from my deck here. The problem is I'm taking a full 10 again because they have Gaia's Cradle in combination with 4 creatures. This has been a really, really rough night. There's really not that much we could have done differently in this set. I probably was wrong in playing this Bayou. I probably should have played the Strip Mine. And the reasoning for that is if I do draw Tabernacle, I would have had Strip Mine in play, and I could Strip Mine the Cradle and play Tabernacle. Yeah, exactly, Rook. One of my other outs is simply drawing a Bowmaster. Oh, it's nothing mattered. Okay. Wow. This is just a really good hand from them, and I don't have the appropriate things to deal with it. I can't even play a Bowmaster now. So even if I had played the Strip Mine, they would have Strip Mined my Strip Mine, and it wouldn't have mattered anyways. So even if I block here, they just have lethal. Well, I guess I'll make them do it. This Tabernacle is actually good enough if I had a Vigor for their Hollow one, but I just don't. Yeah, not much to say, really. I do think we probably should have played the Strip Mine instead of the Bayou, but again, it wasn't going to make it wouldn't have made a difference with the cards they did end up having. If they ended up didn't have this Wasteland, then we actually screwed ourselves off of an available top deck by not making the Strip Mine as our land drop. So there's been a lot of, I think, small sequencing problems that I put together tonight, along with the bigger problems. I can't say that I have played even remotely reasonable. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't even like we didn't really even win the one match we did win. Our opponent was doing some learning, so all right. Final thoughts on this deck. I can see the ways in which this deck could perform in a polarized metagame like a Sunday challenge. If you hit a lot of the matchups where Collector Roof and Bowmaster are good, I can definitely see like even though we went 0-2 in our match versus the blue ring deck, you could see where the cards would be extremely powerful against our opponent's deck. Even the last game we lost, it was just down to like the very small thing of not having a black source, so I had to wasteland. Maybe I didn't even have to wasteland, so maybe it's even a pilot error. But I can see where this deck would be like beating up on Dredge and Jewel and the ring deck, and maybe even like something like maybe not Countervine. This deck might need another Tabernacle, all things considered. But all in all, I think I really don't like the idea of this deck because of the split down the middle of where cards are good, right? So like when these Collector Roofs and Vigors are good, very rarely are, some of the other cards are good. And then when the Tarmogoyfs are good, very rarely are the Collector Oofs good. And so if you don't draw the cards that you need for the specific matchup, you're going to have a bad time. Like, very specifically, we played against Doomsday, right? And we had to keep our opening hand of like Wasteland, Collector Oof, Vigor, or something similar. And those cards are just not good against Doomsday. And it's not like our deck doesn't have cards that are good against Doomsday. The other half of our deck, that's Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, Negation, Hull Breacher, Bowmaster, those cards are amazing against Doomsday. It's just they weren't the cards we had in hand, right? But again, this deck might not also, it might just not even be good against initiative. We didn't play against any initiative tonight, but I'm sure you're not favored in game one, and then you're probably putting up a good fight in game two with 4 removal spells post board. But that's setting yourself up for a pretty uphill climb. If you have to play game 3 on the draw against initiative, there's just so many ways that goes badly too. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think if you're a Deathray Shaman expert, someone who enjoys this style deck, maybe you can make it work. I kind of think this deck wants more Bowmasters. I would be inclined to put these Tarmogoyfs in the sideboard and play 4 Bowmaster, 4 Collector Oof. I do think that Tarmogoyf has a place in this archetype, but I only think that place is quite narrow. And I think the majority of decks, more than 50%, but not like a super high, like 70%, like probably 60% of decks, Tarmogoyf is not what you're looking for. But the 40% of decks where it is what you're looking for, it is very good against those decks, right? But I just think Bowmaster is probably a more generically good card. Bowmaster has its place in the mono white matchup where it's killing Thalia and making 2 attackers. It's obviously incredible against the blue drawing cards decks. And so I think this card is much more versatile, and it's kind of the card I would want to be hinging this deck on. An idea that I was floating around before the stream tonight was something like this. This is a little bit of a variation of the deck we just played. In this case, instead, we're going to also be playing white. Now, the white splash here may be too aggressive. This mana base might simply not be functional. I didn't get to test it that far ahead. But the idea of playing all of the best hate bears in the format, which are Bowmaster, Collector Roof, Lavinia, excluding Archon of Emeria, obviously, because we're playing a Lurrus deck. But playing all the best 2-drop, like true hate bears in the format, and then packaging that in together with the best removal spell in the format in Swords of Plowshares, being able to hit the blue count needed to play Force and Force of Negation, Force of Will, Force of Negation, and you also still have the very strong Deathrite Shaman Wasteland package, and you actually make your Wasteland package even stronger with the addition of Samwise. Samwise being a white card makes the mana a little bit worse, but Samwise being an extra fetch land makes the mana a little bit better. Also, I think Lorien Revealed can be really helpful in this kind of deck, being an island cycler that fixes for any of your off-color spells. So there's like a lot to like in this kind of shell, and this is the direction I would take Deathrite Shaman and Collector Roof. This is something I actually have been saying for quite some time, that I was pretty intrigued by the initial designs of the Lurrus Deathrite Shaman decks, but I felt like the mana was a little bit off. Maybe the mana can be solved using Lorien Revealed, and that might make this deck more viable. One reason I was more willing to try this deck now in comparison to even a few months ago is that the Oko actually got a lot better in the metagame. And the reason Oko got better in the metagame is because it's an actual answer to the indestructible ring, right? The one ring being indestructible means Oko is actually one of the cleaner answers to the card. So I figured this was like a worthwhile test for that. So I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, I was a little bit up and down in the emotions over the course of the night. Thanks for hanging out with me. More vintage content on my YouTube channel Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I will see you then.